My name is Clara Whitman, and I was 31 years old when my father called me crying for the first time in my life. 2 years before that phone call, I had called him from the hallway outside an oncology office with my knees shaking, my biopsy report folded in my hand, and the words, "Stage 3 Hodgkin lymphoma," still ringing in my ears. I said, "Dad, I'm scared." He said 4 words I will never forget. "We can't carry this." He meant my family could not carry my illness because they were already carrying something more important. My sister's wedding, 28 hospital appointments, 6 months of chemotherapy, 1 emergency room visit at 3:12 in the morning. Not one visit from my parents. Not one from my sister. Not one from the people who had once signed birthday cards with love, always as if love were automatic ink. They were too busy choosing champagne-approving floral arches, tasting cakes, and rehearsing the father-daughter dance my father would perform with the daughter he actually saw. Then 2 years later, my father's voice cracked through my phone. "Clara," he said, "I need you." He had suffered a stroke. Not fatal, not even the worst kind, but enough to frighten him, enough to make his right hand weak, enough to make his speech slower. Enough to remind my family that the daughter they forgot existed was unmarried, childless, organized, and therefore in their minds available. They invited me to Sunday dinner. They sat me at the same mahogany table where I had learned year after year that my sister's life was a celebration and mine was a scheduling inconvenience. They told me it was time to come home. They said family shows up. They said daughters take care of fathers. They said I had a responsibility, and when my father finally cried and begged me to move back into my old room to help manage his care, I looked at him across the table, across the years, across every empty hospital chair, and gave him the exact answer he had given me. "We can't carry this." Before I tell you what happened after those 4 words, you need to understand who my family was before cancer stripped the wallpaper off everything. I grew up in West Hartford, Connecticut, in a gray colonial with black shutters, a curved brick walkway, and a front porch my mother decorated according to season. White pumpkins in October, magnolia wreaths in December, hydrangeas in blue ceramic pots every summer. From the street, our house looked like a magazine spread titled "Quiet American Success." Inside, it ran on rules no one admitted existed. My father, Alan Whitman, owned a regional insurance brokerage and spoke in the measured tone of a man used to people believing he was reasonable. My mother, Marjorie, planned charity galas, chaired the church hospitality committee, and could make a casserole for a grieving widow while quietly judging the widow's curtains. My younger sister, Isabelle, was beautiful in the way that made adults forgive her before she apologized. Blonde, bright, always laughing half a second before everyone else. Teachers adored her. Neighbors remembered her name. Waiters gave her extra cherries in Shirley Temples when we were little. I was the older daughter. Responsible, useful, low maintenance. The one who packed the dishwasher correctly and remembered which relatives were allergic to walnuts. When Isabelle got the lead in the school musical, my parents sent flowers to the theater. When I won a statewide essay contest, my mother taped the certificate to the refrigerator for 3 days before replacing it with Isabelle's dance recital photo. When Isabelle crashed my mother's Lexus backing out of the driveway at 16, Dad said accidents happen. When I scratched his car with my bicycle at 12, I spent 3 Saturdays cleaning the garage to learn respect. They did not hate me. That would have been simpler. They loved me in the way people love a reliable appliance. Grateful when it works. Annoyed when it makes noise. I left for college at 18 with scholarships, loans, and a duffel bag I bought myself. My parents helped Isabelle 2 years later with tuition rent furniture, a car sorority dues, and a weekly grocery allowance. When I asked why the rules were different, Dad said, "You have always been more independent." He meant they had trained me not to ask. By 29, I was living in Providence, Rhode Island, working as a project manager at a design studio that specialized in hospital wayfinding systems. I knew even before I got sick how frightening hospitals could be when signs were confusing. That became ironic later. My apartment was small but mine. 1 bedroom, old wood floors, a fire escape where I kept herbs in dented pots, a blue velvet sofa I found on Facebook Marketplace and carried up 2 flights of stairs with my friend Nina laughing behind me. I had a life. A good one. Not glamorous, not easy, but mine. Thursday dinners with Nina, Saturday farmer's market, Sunday morning laundry, a job I was good at, a savings account that finally had more than 3 digits. And then I found the lump. At first I told myself it was nothing. Bodies are strange. Stress does things. I was tired because of work. I was losing weight because I had started running. The night sweats were probably my apartment's terrible radiator. I told myself every reasonable lie available, because the truth was standing behind them, with its hand raised. My primary care doctor sent me for blood work, then imaging, then a biopsy. On a Tuesday afternoon in March, a nurse called while I was reviewing color palettes for a pediatric wing renovation. Ms. Whitman, Dr. Lowell would like you to come in tomorrow morning to discuss your results. I knew. People say you do not know until the doctor says it. That is not true. Sometimes your body hears the verdict before your ears do. The next morning, Dr. Lowell sat across from me in a room with a box of tissues placed too close to the chair. That was the first sign. Clara, she said the biopsy confirms Hodgkin lymphoma. Based on your imaging, we are looking at stage 3. Stage 3. The words did not feel dramatic at first. They felt administrative, like a form had been filed somewhere without my consent. She talked about treatment, chemotherapy, a port, scans, fertility preservation if I wanted to consider it quickly, survival rates, side effects, hair loss, fatigue, infection risk. A whole new language I had not asked to learn. Do you have someone who can drive you home? She asked. Nina was at work. My closest coworker was kind but not close. My parents were 45 minutes away. I was 29 years old, but in that moment I became 8. 8 years old with a fever wanting my father to carry me from the car. I'll call my dad, I said. I walked out into the hallway, past a woman in a knit hat, past a man pushing an IV pole, past posters about hand hygiene and nutrition support. My fingers shook as I pressed Dad's contact. He answered on the 3rd ring. Clara, I'm between meetings. What's wrong? I could hear papers moving in the background. His office voice? Efficient, impatient. Dad, I said, and my voice broke. I just saw the doctor. I have cancer. Silence. Not the kind filled with shock. The kind filled with inconvenience. What kind of cancer? Hodgkin lymphoma. Stage 3. They want to start chemo soon. Another pause. Then faintly in the background, my mother said Alan asked if the photographer wants the full deposit today. Photographer. Because Isabelle's wedding was in 5 months. Because everything in my family, even my cancer, had to enter through the door of Isabelle's wedding. Dad. He exhaled. Clara, listen to me. I waited for the words daughters are allowed to hope for. Come home. We are coming. You are not alone. Instead, he said, we can't carry this. I did not understand. What? Your mother and I are under a tremendous amount of pressure right now. Isabelle's wedding is in August. Deposits, seating out-of-town relatives. There is a lot happening. I stared at a beige wall where someone had scratched a line into the paint. I have cancer. I heard you. His voice sharpened. You have always been strong. You handle things. Isabelle is fragile right now, and this wedding needs to go smoothly. We will talk later when things settle. When things settle? Do not make this harder than it needs to be. Then he said he had to go. The call lasted 3 minutes and 8 seconds. I sat on a bench outside the oncology office and looked at the call log until the screen dimmed. Then I took a screenshot. I did not know why. Not yet. But some part of me, some small legal-minded survivor inside my body, knew memory would not be enough. The first chemotherapy session was on April 6th, chair 12. I remember because 12 had a window. A nurse named Paula accessed my port with hands so gentle I almost cried before the medication even started. First round, she asked. I nodded. Who came with you today? I looked at the empty chair beside me. No one. She did not pity me. That helped. She simply pulled the chair closer and placed a folded blanket on it, as if absence needed covering. Around me, people had people. A woman my mother's age had her husband reading crossword clues aloud. A college student had 2 friends wearing matching hoodies. An older man had his son taking notes on every medication, every instruction, every possible side effect. I had my phone, a granola bar, and a folder of discharge instructions that smelled like printer ink. After the infusion, I texted my mother. First chemo done. I'm scared and nauseous. Could you call me later? She replied 5 hours later. Oh, sweetheart, we are at the venue finalizing table linens, ivory or champagne. You have a better eye for color. I stared at the message from my bathroom floor that night, with a plastic bowl beside me, and my body shaking so hard I could not type. Then I took a screenshot. I replied the next morning. Champagne will photograph warmer. She sent 3 heart emojis. That was my mother. She could request my aesthetic judgment while ignoring my survival. By the 3rd round, my hair came out in handfuls. By the 4th, food tasted like pennies. By the 6th, I knew which nurses hummed while checking lines and which one warmed saline flushes because she said cold ones were rude. My life shrank to treatment cycles. Infusion, nausea, bone-deep fatigue, 2 good days. Blood work, repeat. I worked when I could. My boss, Elena Rowe, was the first person outside the hospital who treated my illness like something real, but not shameful. We will adjust, she said. I do not want to be a burden. She looked at me over her glasses. Clara, projects are burdens. Deadlines are burdens. You are a person. I cried in her office. She pretended not to notice until I asked for tissue. Nina became my emergency contact, my grocery shopper, my ride when I was too dizzy, my person, on the bad nights. She kept a note in her phone called Clara Things. Ginger tea, unscented detergent, crackers. Blue Gatorade, only not red. Do not say everything happens for a reason. One evening during my 5th round, she sat beside me on the sofa while I cried over a clump of hair in my hand. My family is choosing a wedding over me, I said. Nina looked at me. No, Clara, they already chose. You are just finally seeing the receipt. That word stayed with me. Receipt. So I kept them. Texts, call logs, emails, hospital appointment summaries, visitor access records from the cancer center, which Paula told me I could request through patient services. For your records, she said carefully. Maybe she knew. Maybe nurses always know. The visitor column told the truth with institutional cruelty. April 6th, none. April 20th, none. May 4th, none. May 18th, none. June 1st, none. Again and again. Not one Whitman. Not one relative. Not one person whose Christmas card said family is everything. Yeah. Isabelle's wedding was scheduled for August 19th at a vineyard in Newport. My mother had been planning it like a diplomatic summit. The color palette was champagne sage and white. The band cost more than my car. The floral arch involved imported orchids because apparently American flowers were not emotionally available enough. I had not been asked to be maid of honor. That role went to Isabelle's college roommate, Brianna, a woman who once called me Claire for an entire Easter dinner. I had not been asked to give a toast. I had not been included in dress shopping. But for months, my mother sent me photos anyway. Which napkin fold looks more elegant? Do these candles feel romantic or funereal? Would this font be hard for older guests to read? Each message arrived between blood draws after scans during nausea at moments when my own body felt less like home than an unsafe rental. I answered most of them. That is the embarrassing part. I still wanted to be useful. Useful was the closest thing to loved I had been given. 2 weeks before the wedding, Dad called. I was in bed with a low fever, waiting for oncology triage to call me back. Clara, he said, we need to discuss Newport. My heart lifted in that foolish way hearts lift even after being trained. I am still hoping to come if my counts are okay. He cleared his throat. Your mother and I think it would be better if you did not attend. The fever made the room tilt. Why? Do not make me say it. Say it. You look ill. There it was. Not you are ill. You look ill. You have lost weight. Your hair. People will ask questions. Isabelle has been under enormous stress, and we do not want anything distracting from her day. I closed my eyes. You mean me. I mean the situation. I am the situation. He sighed. You are being dramatic. I laughed then. A dry, ugly sound. Cancer is dramatic, Dad. He did not respond. Then he said, we will celebrate your recovery when this is over. When this is over. As if my life had become a badly timed errand. I did not go to the wedding. On August 19th, I received chemo in chair 12, while my sister stood under imported orchids and promised forever to a man named Graham, whose family owned car dealerships. Nina sat with me that day. She wore a sage green scarf she said was on theme since apparently we are attending in spirit. I laughed until I cried. Later in bed, I made the mistake of opening Instagram. Isabelle in lace. Dad walking her down the aisle. Mom crying in champagne silk. Derek from my mother's side of the family raising a glass. 180 guests. My father's caption read, the happiest day of our lives. So proud of our beautiful daughter. Our beautiful daughter. Singular. I took a screenshot. Then I turned off my phone and vomited into the trash can beside my bed. The bills arrived in September. My insurance was good. Good did not mean complete. Specialty medications. Deductibles. Copays. Fertility consultation I did not have time to use. Scans. Emergency visit. Anti-nausea medication not fully covered because suffering apparently comes in preferred tiers. By the time I made a spreadsheet, because that is what terrified project managers do, the number was $43,700. I sat at my kitchen table at midnight, bald, exhausted, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the total. $43,700. 3 days earlier, my cousin had mentioned at a family group chat that Isabelle's wedding had cost just under 90 grand, and Dad had laughed with a champagne emoji. Just under 90 grand. I texted him, Dad, my medical bills are more than I can handle. I need help. Could I borrow $20,000? I will sign whatever repayment agreement you want. I stared at the message for 10 minutes before sending it. His reply came the next morning. Clara, we are tapped out after the wedding. You should speak to the hospital billing office. They have payment plans for situations like yours. Situations like yours? Not my daughter, not cancer, a situation. I replied, I am already on a payment plan. The interest on the personal loan is high. He wrote, you have always been resourceful. I took a screenshot. Then I applied for a loan at 13.8% interest and learned that survival can have an APR. The worst night came in October. My last round had been delayed because my counts were low, and when it finally happened, my body seemed to understand that it had reached the end of endurance. At 2:36 in the morning, I woke shaking, drenched, and too weak to get from the bathroom floor to my bed. I called my mother. No answer. Again. No answer. Again. No answer. At 3:02, I texted. Mom, please, I am scared. I cannot stop shaking. No reply. I texted Nina. Can you come? She called immediately. I am on my way. She arrived in pajama pants under a winter coat, hair wild, face pale with fear. She took my temperature, called oncology triage, held a glass of water to my lips, sat on the tile floor with me until morning. My mother called back at 10:14. Sweetheart, I saw your calls. I had my phone on silent. Isabelle and I were at the spa. Post-wedding decompression. What happened? I looked at Nina, asleep in an armchair with her coat still on. Nothing, I said, because by then telling the truth to my mother felt like pouring water into a locked room. I screenshot the call log. 3 missed calls to Mom. 1 text. No response until daylight. Family documented. I finished treatment in November. No bell. I did not ring the bell in the infusion center because I had complicated feelings about celebration in rooms where other people were still fighting. Paula hugged me anyway. Go live, she said. So I tried. Scans. Waiting. More scans. More waiting. Then 1 year later, Dr. Lowell said the words I had not trusted myself to imagine. No evidence of disease. I walked to the parking garage and sat in my car with both hands on the steering wheel. I did not cry right away. I just breathed. In, out, as if my body and I were negotiating peace. Life after cancer did not become magical. That is something people misunderstand. The world does not return your old life with a ribbon around it. I had scars. A port scar below my collarbone. Debt. Neuropathy in my fingertips when the weather changed. Anxiety before every scan. A rage that arrived at strange times, like when someone complained about a bad haircut or said family will always be there. But I also had a life, a better one, because it was honest. I became director of operations at the design studio. Elena said I had earned it before treatment and proved it during treatment. I moved to a larger apartment in Providence with light from 3 sides and space for every plant I had impulse bought in defiance of mortality. Nina and I kept Thursday dinners. Paula from the infusion center became someone I sent holiday cards to. My family became birthdays and holidays by text. Mom sent, "Happy birthday, sweetheart. Hope you are doing well." Dad sent, "Happy birthday." Isabelle sent nothing unless prompted by Mom. I did not chase. Cancer had burned many things out of me. Desperation was one of them. Then in March, 2 years after my diagnosis, Dad called. It was a Sunday afternoon. I was repotting basil on my kitchen counter, soil under my nails. Nina on speakerphone talking about a disastrous date with a man who said he respected strong women, but argued with the waiter about tap water. My phone buzzed. "Dad." Nina went quiet. "You do not have to answer, I know." But I did. Curiosity is sometimes a scar you still press. "Hello?" "Clara." His voice sounded wrong. Slower. Thicker. "Dad, I need you to come home." "No, hello." "No, how are you?" "No, are you still alive technically and otherwise?" "Just need." "What happened?" He took a breath. "I had a stroke." The basil slipped from my hand soil, spilling over the counter. He continued, "Minor, they say, but my right side is weak. Speech therapy, physical therapy, medication. Your mother is overwhelmed." "I am sorry." And I was, not because he deserved me, because illness is frightening, even when it belongs to someone who frightened you. "We are having dinner next Sunday," he said. "Isabelle and Graham will be there. Your mother wants to talk as a family." As a family. The phrase sounded like a costume pulled from the back of a closet. What does that mean? "We will discuss it when you get here." I almost said no. Then I looked at the soil on my hands. The basil roots exposed. A living thing in transition. "I will come," I said. Nina inhaled sharply. Dad exhaled. "Good, it is time." Time for what he did not say. He did not have to. I already knew. The night before the dinner, I opened the folder. Digital first. Then the printed copy I kept in a blue binder on the bottom shelf of my desk. Nina sat on the floor beside me with takeout noodles and a highlighter she did not need but held like a weapon. We reviewed everything. Diagnosis call log. Text about linens. Text asking about floral fonts. Wedding exclusion call summary I had written immediately after, because I did not trust memory under chemo. Instagram screenshot. Medical loan application. Dad's refusal text. Hospital visitor logs. Emergency night calls to Mom. Every receipt of abandonment. "You do not have to show them," Nina said. "I know." "Then why bring it?" I looked at the binder. "Because they will try to make me feel cruel." "Yes, And I need to remember I am not. Nina nodded. Then bring it. Sunday arrived gray and cold. I dressed carefully, not to impress them, to remain myself. Black trousers, cream sweater, navy coat, small gold earrings Nina had given me on my 1-year remission anniversary. I looked healthy. That would be used against me. I knew that already. My parents' house looked exactly the same. Gray colonial, black shutters, blue hydrangea pots still empty from winter. The porch light on. A house pretending nothing had happened, because houses can only tell the truth through the people inside them. Mom opened the door. She looked older, not dramatically, just softer around the edges as if worry had been sanding her down. Clara. She hugged me before asking. I let her, then stepped back. You look wonderful, she said. I almost replied, thanks, I fought hard for that. Instead I said, hello, Mom. Inside the dining room table was set with the good china. 5 places. Dad at the head, Mom to his left, Isabelle to his right, Graham beside Isabelle. 1 empty chair at the foot. Mine, always the foot. Isabelle stood when I entered. She was 30 now, pregnant, 1 hand resting protectively on her stomach. Clara, she said. Isabelle. Her eyes flicked to my hair, shoulder length now, but different than before. Curly where it had once been straight. She looked away. Graham gave me a polite nod. We had met twice. Once at their engagement party. Once through wedding photos I was not invited to inhabit. Dad remained seated. His right hand rested on the table, fingers curled slightly inward. His face had changed. Not just age, loss of certainty. Illness had entered him and rearranged the furniture. Sit, he said. Still a command. We ate roast chicken, mashed potatoes, green bean salad, nobody touched. Conversation was impossible and therefore polite. Isabelle talked about nursery paint colors. Mom talked about a neighbor's kitchen renovation. Dad corrected Graham's pronunciation of a medication. I watched them perform normal like amateurs. After dessert, Dad cleared his throat. We need to discuss practical matters. There it was. He placed his left hand over his right to still the tremor. My recovery will take longer than expected. I have appointments 3 times a week. Your mother is exhausted. Isabelle is pregnant. Graham travels for work. His eyes came to me. You are the only logical solution. Logical, not loved, not trusted. Logical. You want me to do what exactly I asked. Mom folded her napkin. We thought you could move back for a while. Your old room is ready. You can work remotely, can't you? For a while, Dad answered. 6 months, maybe a year, depending on progress. I looked at him. You want me to leave my apartment, my job, my doctors, my life, and move back here to manage your care? You are making it sound unreasonable. Am I? You have no husband, no children. Your work is flexible. Isabelle is about to become a mother. Isabelle looked down. Graham said nothing. Mom reached across the table. Families help each other, Clara. The old sentence, the old trap. I felt it open beneath my feet and found to my surprise solid ground. Do they? Mom blinked. Dad frowned. What is that supposed to mean? I sat back. When was the last time any of you asked about my last scan? No one spoke. I looked at Isabelle. Do you know when my last oncology appointment was? She swallowed. Number. Mom. Tears rose instantly. That made me angry. Not because she cried, because tears had always arrived before accountability, like curtains lowering before the scene got difficult. Dad. He shifted. You are clearly doing well. Clearly. You look healthy. There it is. The room went still. Graham's eyes moved from my father to me. I continued. You want me to become your caregiver because I look healthy enough to be useful. But none of you know whether I am healthy because none of you asked. Dad's voice hardened. This is not the time to relitigate old grievances. I reached down beside my chair and lifted the blue binder from my bag. No, I said. This is exactly the time. The binder hit the table with a soft sound. Not dramatic. Paper rarely is. That is why people underestimate it. What is that? Isabelle asked. Receipts. Mom whispered my name like a warning. Clara. I opened the binder. Page 1. Diagnosis call log. March 16th. Dad. 3 minutes 8 seconds. 2 years ago, I said I called Dad after I was diagnosed with stage 3 cancer. I told him I was scared. He said, "We can't carry this because Isabelle's wedding was 5 months away." Dad's face darkened. I did not say it like that. I turned to the page. I wrote the summary in the hospital hallway immediately after the call because I knew one day you would say that. Silence. Page 2. Text from Mom. Ivory or champagne linens? Timestamp. Same day as first chemo. Page 3. My reply. Champagne will photograph warmer. My voice stayed level. I texted Mom after my first chemo. She asked me about linens. Mom covered her mouth. I did not know you were that sick. I looked at her. Chemo is not a spa treatment, Mom. Isabelle flinched. Page 4. Call notes from Dad asking me not to attend the wedding. I read it aloud. Your mother and I think it would be better if you did not attend. You look ill. People will ask questions. We do not want anything distracting from her day. Isabelle's face went white. You told her not to come. Dad said we were trying to protect you. From what Isabelle asked. No one answered. So I did. From embarrassment. I turned the binder toward her. August 19th. The day of your wedding. I was in chemo chair 12. Isabelle stared at the page like it might rearrange itself into something kinder. I thought you chose not to come, she whispered. I know. Mom began crying harder. I turned another page. Hospital visitor records. Dates. Treatment center. Visitor column. None. 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 28 hospital appointments, I said. 0 family visits. Graham leaned forward. Not one. Not one. Dad's jaw tightened. You could have asked. I laughed. Not loudly. Just enough. I did. Repeatedly. Page after page. Texts. Calls. Missed calls. The emergency night. Mom at the spa with Isabelle. Dad refusing help with medical bills. You have always been resourceful. The words sat on the page looking smaller than they had felt. Isabelle covered her mouth with both hands. Mom whispered, I am sorry. I did not look at her yet. Dad said this is manipulative. There it was. The old authority trying to climb back into its chair. I looked at him. Documentation is only manipulation when you were planning to lie. Graham made a sound under his breath. Maybe agreement, maybe shock. Dad turned on him. You have something to say? Graham sat back. Yes, he said quietly. I did not know any of this. Isabelle looked at him, then at me. I didn't either. I studied her face. For the first time, I believed her. That did not erase anything. It only made the shape of harm more complicated. Dad tapped the binder with his left hand. This was 2 years ago. We are talking about now. I need care now. And I needed care then. I am your father. I was your daughter. The room went silent. Not polite. Not embarrassed. Broken open. Mom reached for a tissue. Isabelle was crying now too, but differently. Not the way Mom cried to end conversations. The way someone cries when a wall in her childhood cracks and she sees what was behind it. Dad's voice lowered. I am scared. I believed that too. Illness had finally made him human to himself. I know, I said. Then help me. I looked at him. At his weak hand. At the man who had taught me love was conditional and then needed unconditional devotion. For 1 second, grief moved through me. Not guilt. Grief. For the father I wanted. For the family that might have existed if any of them had chosen me when it mattered. Then I closed the binder. 2 years ago, I called you crying after my diagnosis. I told you I was scared. You told me, we can't carry this. His eyes filled. Clara. No. Listen. The word surprised everyone, including me. You said you could not carry my cancer because Isabelle's wedding was too important. You said I was strong, independent, resourceful. You were right about the last part. I became resourceful enough to survive without you. His mouth trembled. Maybe stroke. Maybe shame. Maybe both. Mom whispered, please do not leave like this. I stood. Dad's eyes followed me. Clara, please. He was crying now. I had never seen him cry. Not when his own father died. Not when I was diagnosed. Not when Isabelle walked down the aisle. But now tears slid down his face because pain had finally chosen his address. "I need you," he said. The little girl in me woke up at those words. She had waited decades to be needed. She almost stepped forward. Almost. But the woman I became placed a hand on her shoulder and kept her safe. "I hear that," I said, "and I am sorry you are scared." Dad's face broke with hope. Then I gave him back his truth. "But we can't carry this." 4 words. The same 4 words. My mother gasped. Isabelle sobbed once sharp. Dad stared at me like he had just heard his own voice through a locked door. I picked up the binder. My coat. My bag. At the doorway, Isabelle stood. "Clara, wait." I turned. "I am sorry," she said. "I know that is not enough, but I am sorry." I nodded. "Then do better with your child." She put both hands over her stomach and cried harder. I walked out, past the dining room, past the wall of family photos where Isabelle's wedding portrait hung in silver frame, and my face had not appeared for years, past the front porch with its empty hydrangea pots, into the cold night air. Nina was waiting in her car at the curb because chosen family understands exits. I opened the passenger door. She looked at my face. "You okay?" "Number." She nodded. "Do you want to be, eventually?" "That counts." As we drove away, I did not look back at the house. Not because I was strong, because I finally knew there was nothing inside it I needed to retrieve. Fallout does not always sound like thunder. Sometimes it sounds like a text. 3 days after dinner, Isabelle sent one. I read the binder pages again in my head all night. I am horrified. I am sorry I believed the version of the story that made my wedding easier. I am not asking for anything. I just needed to say it. I did not respond immediately. 2 weeks later, I wrote back, "I believe you did not know everything. I also believe you benefited from not asking. Both are true." She replied, "I know. That was new." In our family, people usually defended themselves before the wound was finished speaking. Mom texted a week after that, "Your father has started outpatient therapy. Isabelle is helping coordinate care. Graham is arranging paid support twice a week. I am sorry I made you feel responsible for my feelings at dinner. I should have been responsible for yours when you were sick." I read that message 3 times. Then I sent, "Thank you for saying that. I am not ready to talk." She replied, "I will wait, even if waiting is all I get." I cried then. Not because everything was fixed. Because for the first time, my mother did not ask me to make her feel better. Dad did not text. Not for a month. Then a letter arrived. His handwriting had changed. Uneven. Large in some places, cramped in others. "Clara, I have tried to write this many times. The first versions were excuses. Your mother told me to throw them away." She was right. "I failed you. I told myself you were strong because that allowed me to abandon you without calling it abandonment. I told myself Isabelle needed us more because her needs were easier for me to understand. I told myself a wedding had deadlines and cancer had doctors. That sentence makes me ashamed. I remember the call. I remember saying we could not carry it. I wish I could say I did not mean it, but I did mean it at the time. I chose convenience over my daughter's fear. I do not know how to live with that. I am not asking you to take care of me. I am not asking you to forgive me. I am asking only that you know I finally see what I did. You survived without me. That is not proof that you did not need me. It is proof that I was absent when I should have been your father. I am sorry. Dad." I sat with the letter for a long time. Then I placed it in the blue binder, not with the evidence. Behind it, a different section, not proof of repair. Proof that repair, if it ever came, would have to begin with truth. 6 months later, my life was quiet in the way I had once feared would mean lonely. It did not. Quiet meant no one was demanding I erase myself. Quiet meant Thursday dinner with Nina and her girlfriend Mara, who made terrible soup, but excellent bread. Quiet meant scan results that still said no evidence of disease. Quiet meant a promotion to senior operations director and a team of younger project managers who came to me with questions because I had become the kind of leader who noticed when someone was pretending not to struggle. Quiet meant a fund I started at the hospital with Elena's help. The Chair 12 Fund, small at first, then larger after the design studio matched donations. Gas cards, meal delivery, rides to treatment, emergency grants for patients whose families had disappeared. When Paula heard the name, she cried. "You remembered the chair." "I remember everything," she smiled. "That can be heavy. It can also be useful." Isabelle came to one fundraiser, heavily pregnant, nervous, holding a check from her and Graham. She stood by the refreshment table for 15 minutes before approaching me. "I named the baby Alice," she said. "Pretty, after no one." I looked at her. She swallowed. I wanted her name to belong to her. That mattered more than I expected. We were not sisters yet. Not really. But maybe we were two women standing near the ruins of a structure neither of us built, deciding whether any beams were worth saving. Mom and I spoke once a month. Short calls. Careful, sometimes honest. She told me Dad had cried when he learned about the fund. I said nothing. She said, "I am not telling you that to make you call him." Good. I am telling you because I am learning the difference. That was the closest thing to progress I had heard from her. Dad's recovery was slow. He had paid caregivers now, real ones. Professionals with schedules, training, and wages. Isabelle helped coordinate. Graham drove him to therapy once a week. Mom learned to manage medications. The world did not collapse because I refused to become the family solution. That was important. People who benefit from your sacrifice often describe your boundaries as catastrophes. Most of the time, they are only inconveniences they were hoping to outsource. 1 year after the dinner, I visited the cancer center on a Wednesday afternoon. Not for treatment, for a meeting about expanding the Chair 12 fund. Afterward, I walked past the infusion room. Chair 12 was occupied by a woman around my age, wearing a gray beanie, her eyes fixed on the empty chair beside her. I knew that stare. The mathematics of absence. Paula saw me and waved. "This is Clara," she told the woman. "She started the fund that got your rides approved." The woman looked at me. Her name was Tessa. She said thank you. I sat in the empty chair beside her. Only for 10 minutes. We talked about ginger candy, parking validation, and how everyone says be strong as if weakness would be a moral failure. Before I left, she asked, "Did your family come?" I could have lied. Instead, I said no. Her eyes filled. "Mine either." I nodded. "Then we will make sure someone else does." That is what healing became for me. Not pretending it did not hurt. Not forcing forgiveness because people prefer tidy endings. But building something useful out of the place where I was abandoned. If you are listening because someone disappeared when you needed them most and then came back when they needed you, I want you to hear me clearly. You are allowed to remember. You are allowed to keep receipts. You are allowed to say no without presenting a courtroom case. The evidence is not what makes your pain real. It was real when it happened. The screenshots, the visitor logs, the texts, the call records, those things are only anchors for days when people try to rewrite the storm. You are not cruel for refusing to become a caregiver for someone who would not hold your hand. You are not selfish for protecting the life you rebuilt. You are not obligated to repay absence with devotion. Family is not a word people get to cash when they have made no deposits. Family is not a bloodline. Family is not a house with good china and photographs arranged to hide who is missing. Family is who shows up in the hallway, who answers at 3:02 in the morning, who learns which flavor of Gatorade you can keep down, who sits in chair 12 and does not make your sickness about their discomfort. My father once told me we can't carry this. He was right about one thing. They could not carry me, so I learned who could. Nina, Paula, Elena, Mara, patients who became friends, friends who became sisters, my own two hands when they stopped shaking. I am Clara Whitman. I am 32 now. I am still cancer-free. My hair grew back darker and curlier, as if even my body decided not to return unchanged. My father is still recovering. My mother is still learning. Isabelle sends photos of Alice, who has my sister's gold hair and a stubborn little frown I secretly admire. I do not know what forgiveness will look like. Maybe a phone call someday. Maybe a visit. Maybe nothing more than reading his letter without feeling the room tilt. I have stopped demanding that healing announce itself in dramatic ways. Some days healing is deleting a voicemail. Some days it is answering one. Some days it is driving past your parents' exit and continuing home. And some days it is sitting beside a stranger in an infusion room so she does not become another empty visitor log. What I know is this: the 4 words I gave my father were not revenge. They were a mirror. They were the boundary I should have been given before cancer had to teach it to me. We can't carry this, not because I am weak, because I finally understand that not every weight with your family name on it belongs in your arms. And if you are carrying something that was handed to you by people who disappeared when it was your turn to be held, I hope you set it down. I hope you breathe. I hope you find your Nina, your Paula, your Chair 12. I hope you build a life so full of real love that the old house with the good china becomes only a place you once survived. Not home. Never home again. Just proof that you left.